Europe's human rights watchdog has criticized what it calls the excessive use of force by French police during demonstrations against unpopular pension reforms. The rebuke by the Council of Europe, the latest headache for French President Emmanuel Macron, who's dealing with strikes, blockades, and rallies across the country. Today, he also announced that a visit to France by Britain's King Charles III has been postponed due to the unrest in France.
This will be the only chance to meet Britain's King Charles in the French capital in the coming weeks. His statue has been unveiled in a wax museum ahead of the monarch's now cancelled visit to Paris. With tensions over a pension reform on the rise, many on the streets welcome the move.
Do we now have to block off half of Paris at the moment because Charles is visiting? I don't think so.
I don't think it's the right time for the King of England to come to Paris. Today, we're protesting against the pension reform, and Macron wouldn't be available for meetings with him.
Police arrested hundreds of protesters across the country on Thursday. Flight and rail traffic were disrupted as many employees went on strike. In Bordeaux, the door of the city hall was set on fire. Polls show that the majority of the French people oppose Macron's reform, which will extend the retirement age by 2 years. But the president insists it's the only way to keep the pension system afloat. At an EU summit in Brussels, the French leader said he was open to finding a way out of the crisis.
We will not give in to this violence. One does not have the right to violence in a democracy. I'm ready to talk to the unions to make progress on all these matters.
Unions have warned of a major social conflict if the government does not back down. While France's top court still needs to give its final word on the bill, the country is bracing for more protests.
All right, let's get the latest now by our correspondent who is in Paris, Sonia Fondekar. Sonia, it's good to see you. We just heard there that a planned visit by King Charles III has been postponed, evidently because the security situation in Paris is simply too volatile. What more do we know?
Well, President Macron had really been under pressure for a few days to pull the plug on this visit by King Charles, given the volatile situation, and really also the prospect of welcoming the king through streets piled up with, with garbage and really heavy security for every public appearance. Now, if the people in charge of providing, flags and red carpets for this event, they were also planning to go on strike. There was a lot of opposition here from politicians also saying the optics of this visit would have been really bad right now. And I think there is little doubt here in France that the decision to postpone this visit comes as quite an embarrassment to Macron. This was meant to be a highly significant visit. It was meant to really cement a kind of newly revitalized friendship between France and the UK after years of post-Brexit tensions.
And we have heard today that the French president says that he's willing to talk with trade unions. He knows that they're angry about this. But he's also said that he's not going to change his mind on raising the retirement age. So are these talks, are they going to make a difference?
You're right. I mean, he has said that he's willing to talk to these union leaders, of course, once the Constitutional Council approves this unpopular pension reform. Now, this is something President Macron said in a televised interview earlier this week. So in that sense, this really doesn't represent a change of stance. It may be an attempt to really pacify some of the anger on the street, though I doubt that's going to have any effect. I think one of the main problems here is that many people here are really not just angry at this reform, but also the way that it was passed, really, without a parliamentary vote. And I think for many people reinforces this image of the president as a kind of aloof, top-down leader out of touch with the concerns of ordinary people.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of that in the last couple of days. Today, the Council of Europe slammed France for the use of excessive police force, particularly in Paris. We've seen videos on social media. It does not look good. What are we looking at for the next few days?
Well, it doesn't feel like these protests are going to die down really anytime soon. The unions have already called for another day of strikes and demonstrations next Tuesday. Yesterday, we saw more than 1 million people take to the streets to protest this unpopular reform. And I think one of the biggest worries now for the government is really these spontaneous, unorganized protests that have been erupting at night in many cities across France, where there have been clashes between protesters and police. There's been vandalism of public property. And I think this really feels a bit now like we're on the verge of some kind of a social rebellion like the one we saw during the yellow protests during Macron's first term.
Yeah, a lot of people are drawing parallels already. Our correspondent Sonia Falnikard with the latest from Paris. Sonia, thank you.